Hello, my name is Keegan and I am a zero carb athlete. For the past 8 months, I've been on a ketogenic carnivore diet. Basically, I haven't had any carbs in the past 8 to 9 months-ish. And I've still been getting more fitness, more athletic, all this stuff. And I wanted to make this video today to share with you how I'm getting more athletic without eating any carbohydrates. I don't think they're really necessary. I don't think they're really needed. And I just want to kind of dispel I think it's a myth, honestly, that, oh, you need carbohydrates, otherwise you can't be an athlete. I think that's a bunch of BS, to be honest. And so I just wanted to make this video to share with you, like, you don't need to go on and, eat a bunch of carbohydrates and do all this weird nonsense to, get more athletic in order to achieve your fitness goals. Because I think carbohydrates can have a lot of downsides. And, even if you enjoy them, I think once you get to a certain point, I think they can actually be, like, not healthy to consume too many of them. And so I just wanted to make this video to share how I'm going about it and my progress and that sort of thing. Firstly, though, I just want to talk about what I did whenever I was eating carbohydrates. And, I still had a similar goal of becoming a good endurance runner, running a bunch and that sort of thing. But my problem with carbs in particular is because they are very, very easy to overeat and to run into problems with, at least from what I've found. And so even if it was clean carbs or, whatever, I always found myself overeating and gaining body fat whenever I didn't want to. And so unless I was like being super restrictive and kind of like locking down on my calories, I'm going to have this much, and being super strict with that. If I was going a little bit like more intuitive with how I ate and just kind of eating to, I wouldn't say for like pleasure, but to be a little bit more satisfied and more full and to have a little bit more energy, I still found myself gaining body fat really quickly and just feeling like sickly and gross and bloated and watery a lot more often than I do now. And I think a part of that is just because of how carbs generally are. Like I said, they're really easy to overeat. And that's something that I really struggled with whenever I was eating carbohydrates consistently, is in particular with, it was all carbs, to be completely honest. There were some where I didn't eat as much, with like potatoes. I didn't overeat a ton of those. But other things like, obviously the processed food that had like cookies and whatnot, obviously those would be easy to overeat. But even the things that you wouldn't think you would overeat that much. I know I said potatoes, but I still would eat a decent amount of those. And, fruits, that was a big one that I overate a lot of, is fruits. I remember one time I actually ate, I chopped up a pineapple, and I was only going to have maybe 100 grams of it, and then I ended up eating the entire pineapple, so 500 grams or so of pineapple in one sitting. It was terrible, dude. And I get that some of that probably should have been a little bit more willpower heavy to okay, so I probably should stop here. But yeah, it happened anyways. And so I left. It was in the morning time, I remember. I had that for breakfast. And I remember just going to school, just having this sickly, gross feeling, just feeling like a fat fuck, dude. It was bad. And that's my experience with carbohydrates. I've some good, some bad. And in recent times, it's been more bad. And so that's why I've cut them out for almost coming up on a year now. Is just, I've just not wanted to deal with that personally. But beyond that, how other ways that I'm getting more athletic without carbohydrates is really just like the mental clarity that no carb has given me. I think makes me a better athlete in general. So whenever I was eating carbohydrates beforehand, and just it was even more so with junk food and whatnot. And so whenever I cut out junk food, this really cut down. But even with carbs and stuff like rice and whatnot, I would get a lot of this brain fog. And that can be kind of like a nebulous term, like, oh, brain fog. But generally, for me, brain fog was this weird, like, headache feeling of my brain, just not feeling right, just feeling kind of like low energy, a little bit slow, and overall just kind of being like confused and dazed, not making the clearest decisions that I could. I find more often than not now, as long as I'm well rested and hydrated, that I make a lot better decisions. I'm a lot more clear-headed. There's a lot less problems whenever it comes to cognition. That's what I've found personally. And I'm also a lot less likely to overeat the foods that I do eat now. I only eat basically meat and eggs now, and it's really hard to overeat those things. Like, without feeling like kind of sick at some point, because it's just like, it's very hard to overeat and gain a ton of weight from those things, unless I'm, like weight training and building muscle and whatnot, because you'll excrete the excess fat relatively quickly if you eat a ton of it. But yeah, how I'm getting more athletic just in general, beyond the clear and better decision making, the clearer brain and cognition, is I'm literally just training hard. Like, I'm just training. I'm lifting weights, I'm running, I'm jumping, I'm sprinting, stretching, rehabbing my freaking injuries. Like, I still get, like, I'm not saying like zero carbs gonna make you invincible. I'm not invincible. I wasn't invincible whenever I was eating carbs. Like, it's the same thing. And so before I get a little bit farther into this, I just want to ask you to please subscribe if you want to support me and what this message that I'm spreading. I'd really hope that you subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff like sharing and watching to the end. That'd really mean a lot to me. So please do that, and we can continue. But just training in general is what I'm doing. Like, that's all I need to do is just train. I think a lot of people kind of overcomplicate the importance of diet, thinking like, oh, like you need to eat carbs, otherwise you can't be an athlete. Or you could just be an athlete and then just decide not to eat carbs. Like, I don't get how that makes any sense. I have energy still. I have the capability to train still. So therefore, I'm still an athlete. I'm still competing, so I'm still an athlete, right? It doesn't make any sense how people can say, oh, you can't be an athlete without carbs. Yes, I can. I'm doing it right now, aren't I? I don't know. It's such a weird mindset to me to think like, oh, you need this one thing to be an athlete. Not really. I mean, you can you can not have a lot of things and still be an athlete. So, yeah. But basically, I'm just training to be an athlete. That's all I'm really doing. Like I said, I'm lifting weights, running, jumping, sprinting, stretching, getting injured, recovering from that injury, sleeping, recovering. It's stimulus and then recovery. That's basically what an athlete does, is you train, you recover, you train, you recover, you train and recover. You do that for a while, and then you compete against other people who have trained and recovered. And then you see which one's training and recovery is better. That's basically what being an athlete is all about. And my recovery right now is essentially the same, or if not better, like with what I'm eating right now. Since I'm not having any carbohydrates, I'm either eating more fat or I'm eating more protein. And it's kind of like a mix of both. So more protein, I don't think you can really go wrong with that, to be honest, especially as an athlete. It's like, okay, it's more muscle, more protein, right? That's good. And more fat, like your cells are literally made out of fat if you think about it. Like there's very little of you that is made out of carbohydrates. A lot of you is made out of water, protein, and fat. So just in my mind, it makes more sense to be eating and drinking more of those than it is to be eating carbohydrates whatsoever. It doesn't really make any sense to me to be eating carbohydrates in general. But I think you get what I'm saying there. Is like it kind of makes sense how recovery would be a little bit better whenever you're just eating the constituent parts of you, right? Like I'm drinking a lot of water, I'm eating a lot of protein, eating some fat. So it's like I'm building up me by by eating the constituent parts that make up me, right? But beyond that, my sleep has been pretty good. I don't really think my diet has really affected my sleep that much, to be honest. The only thing that really affects my sleep, diet-wise, is if I eat too close to bedtime. I'll be completely honest. Like everything else sleep-wise, for me personally, has been in terms of if I'm getting to bed on time, the light exposure, sunlight, activity throughout the day. It's like general sleep hygiene stuff. Like I haven't really found that much different in my diet to affect my recovery that much, just in general. It's like most of what matters is what I do leading up to bedtime. So if I eat too close to bedtime, then my diet will affect my sleep. But if I eat within the proper time, I don't eat like a huge meal before bed, then it's not going to affect my sleep. So in general, I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, but in general, in my opinion, diet doesn't really matter for being an athlete whatsoever. I don't think it really matters. You know, if you think and feel and you perform better on carbohydrates, cool. If you think and feel and perform better without carbohydrates, cool. Doesn't really matter. What matters in the end on if you're a great athlete or you're a good athlete or a bad athlete is the quality and the consistency of your training and your recovery. I think that's the thesis statement that I'm trying to make with this video is your diet does not really matter all that much. If as long as it allows you to recover and allows you to train as hard as you can, then it doesn't really matter. Whatever that is. Like obviously some things like probably eating more real food instead of junk food is probably going to allow you to perform better. But I think you get what I'm saying here. Is like as long as you're able to train and get that stimulus, whatever it may be, and then you get the recovery in order to recover from that, then you're going to get the adaptation regardless. Right? You're going to get the lower heart rate. You're going to get the faster speed. You're going to get the increased muscle mass. Whatever it is, as long as you do the stimulus and then you get to the recovery, whatever system that you use to go through that, as long as you go through that process, you're still going to get the results that you're looking for. That's the way I kind of look at training and like athleticism and whatnot. It's just like a system of putting stuff through, right? It's just you stimulus response, like stimulus response. It's that I genuinely think it's that simple. Is you do this sort of stimulus and you get this sort of adaptation or fit response after you recover. That's the way I see it. I don't really think you need to eat 400 grams of carbs a day or eat, like 120 grams of carbs every hour on the hour whenever you're running a marathon. I just think that's a little bit ridiculous. I think if you're able to run the marathon and you find that just eating, some carbs allows you to perform at your best, cool. Like I get there's a ton of the people who will say, "Oh, show me the studies, show me the studies." But I don't think the studies really matter all that much in your life, to be honest. And there's obviously going to be some nuance per person. If you just think about that. Like we're all generally a little bit different. And so there's going to be a little bit of nuance to how someone approaches life than some other ways. Like there's going to be nuance to people's existence. And so I think just generally putting this like blanket statement of like, oh, you need carbs to be an athlete. You need carbs to be an athlete. I think it's a little bit too broad and it's like a blanket statement. If I would encourage you to experiment to lower the carbohydrates and just maybe cut them out completely like I have. Because beyond, getting more athletic without carbohydrates, removing carbs and a bunch of other stuff from my life has made my life quality so much higher. It has really improved the texture of my existence, the quality of my thoughts, how happy I am on a daily basis. Like it's more than just, being more athletic that low carbs has granted me. It's been a lot. It's just been like a lifestyle shift for the better, like a life quality shift for the better. And that's why I would encourage you to at least try it out, like low carb, like sub 100 grams, maybe even sub 50 or even 0, like I'm trying to do, and just see how that goes for you for a while. I'm not saying that you need to do it forever. You don't need to. That's okay. Like, I just wanted to encourage you to experiment and not get stuck in those dogmatic ways of like, oh, you need carbohydrates. You need carbohydrates. I don't think you do. I will experiment with myself more to see if I do actually need carbohydrates. I don't think you do because I've been successful in getting more athletic without them. I'll maybe reintroduce them at some point in the future, but as it stands, I'm going to stay 0 carb as much as I can. So, yeah. I guess the overall message that I would like to share with this video is just experiment. See how you feel without carbs, and maybe write a comment on how you feel. And if you don't want to try that out, okay, I don't really care. Like I'm just here to encourage you to think and experiment with your ways of eating and not to get stuck in some dogmatic way, and to really try and make change in your life. Because if you're unhappy with where you're at, maybe you're not achieving the athletic feats that you want, maybe you're not training as much as you want, maybe you're not doing whatever, make the choice and just like experiment. Go out and get something done. Right? Don't stay stagnant. Staying stagnant is really just getting worse. Because if you just think like inflation is real, dude. Like inflation for everything is real. And so just staying the same means you're actually just getting worse. And I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. I definitely wouldn't wish that upon myself, my future self, my younger self. So try it out, experiment, try to keep growing and learn. So yeah, that's how I'm getting more athletic without carbs. If you like this video, then you should go watch all my other ones. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, bro. See you tomorrow? I don't know. Whenever you see my next video, I'll see you then.